While eating his meal, prisoner Luke suddenly came up with a bold idea. Seeing that the guards weren't paying attention, he quietly wrapped a piece of string around his finger and pretended he needed to use the restroom. The guard allowed it, but warned that he had to keep shaking a branch as a signal. If they lost sight of the movement, they'd shoot. Luke stayed calm. He found a relatively hidden spot, and as he relieved himself, the guards fired warning shots to prevent any escape. He kept yelling that he was still there, but out of sight, he was secretly tying the string to a tree branch. From a distance, the branch was still moving, but Luke's voice had disappeared. Sensing something was wrong, the guard fired a shot toward the area, but hit nothing. He rushed over, only to find a long piece of string lying on the ground. Luke was gone. Luke had already made his way to a nearby house. Knowing the guards would soon catch up, he tricked 2 children into bringing him an axe. He used it to cut off his shackles and then wrapped the exposed ends with cloth. He asked one of the black children to sprinkle pepper along the road to cover his scent, buying himself more time. Sure enough, when the guards arrived with tracking dogs, the pepper made the dogs sneeze uncontrollably. They circled around in confusion. Upon seeing the chain remnants on a tree stump, the guard realized Luke had escaped. But the next day, he was caught and brought back. Everyone was shocked. It happened even faster than last time. This wasn't his first escape attempt, so the guards added an extra shackle. Still, Luke wasn't giving up. That night, while the other prisoners were holding a dance party, he pried open the floorboards underneath. His fellow inmates made extra noise to cover for him, distracting the guards. With their help, Luke quickly sawed through the wood. When the warden came to inspect, a prisoner named Mark pretended he had something urgent to report and drew the warden to his bed. That gave Luke a chance to slip under the bed, followed closely by another inmate. Soon after, the guards heard a commotion outside and rushed out. One of the inmates hadn't even made it over the barbed wire before he was caught by patrolling guards. But it was all part of the plan. The noise was meant to buy Luke more time. Soon, tracking dogs were released. By then, Luke had reached a river and kept running until sunrise. To throw the dogs off his trail, he jumped back and forth near a fence to confuse the scent path. When the dogs arrived, they were completely lost. His scent was everywhere. Some dogs began crawling through the fence repeatedly, and one even got stuck. To avoid leaving a scent on the ground, Luke climbed onto wires or even ran through pigsties to pick up animal odors. He didn't believe they'd catch him again. Before long, the guards returned by car because their tracking dog had died of exhaustion. The handler wept, shocked that a man could outrun a trained dog to death. A week passed. One day, Mark received a magazine. Inside was a photo of Luke, surrounded by beautiful women. His cellmates were in awe, but the next evening, Luke was caught again. This time, he was barely conscious, clearly having suffered greatly. Once the guards left, the inmates quickly laid him on a table to rest. The reason Luke kept trying to escape was because his mother had recently passed away. According to prison rules, he should have been granted leave to pay respects. But fearing he'd run, the guards denied his request and locked him in solitary confinement. They didn't let him out until after the funeral. Luke only wanted to visit his mother's grave, but the warden refused. That's what drove him to escape again and again. Luke had once been a decorated soldier, but was sentenced to 2 years for damaging public property. At first, no one liked him. He was seen as a bragger, but everything changed after one conversation. During a casual chat, someone mentioned that a man once ate 10 chocolate bars and drank 7 cold drinks in 15 minutes. Luke suddenly claimed he could eat 50 boiled eggs. Everyone was stunned. Most thought he was bluffing. 50 eggs weigh over 10 pounds, and no human stomach could handle that. 50 inmates bet that he wouldn't get past 30. Soon, a tray of 50 eggs was brought out. To prepare, Luke hadn't eaten all day. Once the countdown began, he went to work, downing nearly 1 egg every 10 seconds. The guy peeling eggs couldn't keep up. Everyone watched in disbelief, but after the 24th egg, Luke began to slow down. He started doing squats to aid digestion. By the time he hit the 30-second, his stomach was bloated like a pregnant belly. He rinsed his mouth at the sink, then returned to the challenge. His cellmates helped him move and stuffed eggs into his mouth. Only 9 eggs left. Mark stood by, joking they were just quail eggs. With 6 minutes on the clock, Luke lay down and had his friends feed him the remaining eggs. And just before time ran out, Luke swallowed the final egg. His supporters erupted in cheers, while the others stared in disbelief. Luke lay there with a calm smile, like a crucified Jesus, serene in victory. From that moment on, everyone's opinion of Luke changed. He had earned their respect through action. What happened next would solidify that respect even more through sheer, unbreakable will. One day, the prison hosted a boxing match. Mark, a trained boxer, stepped into the ring first. No one dared to challenge it except Luke. Thin and seemingly weak, Luke was no match for Mark. His punches had no effect, while every hit from Mark sent him crashing to the ground. It was a one-sided beating, 2 fighters from completely different leagues. But no matter how many times Luke was knocked down, he got back up. Eventually, the watching inmates couldn't take it anymore. They pleaded with Luke to stop, but he refused to give in. He said the only way he'd stay down was if they beat him to death. Many couldn't bear to watch and turned back to their cells. Even Mark hesitated, begging him to stop, but Luke, bloodied and exhausted, kept swinging with whatever strength he had left. With no choice, Mark landed one final punch that knocked Luke down again. Then he walked away, leaving behind the man who still stood defiantly in the center of the ring. From then on, no one dared underestimate Luke. Slowly, he began to bond with the group. The more time they spent with him, the more they admired his unique spirit. No matter how brutal the environment, Luke always faced it with a smile. One day, the guards ordered the inmates to finish paving an entire road in a single day, or be punished. Everyone thought it was impossible, clearly a setup by the guards. But Luke tackled the task with enthusiasm. The more they tried to break him, the harder he worked to prove them wrong. His relentless drive infected everyone else. Soon, the whole group was digging and shoveling like madmen. Even the guards were stunned. They finished the job 2 hours ahead of schedule, leaving the guards with no excuse to punish them. But fate had other plans. The next day, Luke received word that his mother had died. He requested leave to attend her funeral, but the guards denied it, setting in motion the 2 escape attempts mentioned earlier. To prevent another escape, the guards began torturing, beating him whenever he stopped working and locking him in, solitary at night, trying to break his spirit. After a long day of labor, Luke was summoned again. A guard ordered him to dig a hole and said he couldn't eat until it was done. After finishing the hole, another guard came by, furious, asking why the hole was there, and ordered him to fill it back in. Once he did, the first guard returned and demanded to know why the hole had been filled. Clearly, they were playing with. Unable to take it anymore, Luke charged at them, but was met with a brutal beating. His fellow inmates sang to lift his spirits, and he picked up the shovel once again. It wasn't until late at night that he finished redigging the hole. Faced with endless abuse, Luke finally broke. He grabbed a guard's leg and promised to behave, to never try escaping again. His cellmates were heartbroken. Their hero had fallen. Back in the barracks, no one spoke to him. When he tripped, no one helped him up. Luke looked around in disbelief at the silence. From then on, Luke changed. He brought tea and water to the guards, acting like an obedient servant. His fellow inmates couldn't believe it. The man who once stood tall in defiance was now groveling at the feet of his oppressors. He even started flattering the guards. One day, the foreman told Luke to load a turtle onto a truck so they could eat it later. But the moment he turned his back, Luke jumped into the truck and drove off. Mark saw what was happening and quickly hopped on to join him. When the guards rushed to chase after them, they realized Luke had taken all the car keys with him. They drove to a riverbank, hid the truck with tree branches, and broke off their shackles. Mark praised Luke's brilliant performance, saying it fooled every single guard. That night, they found a path that would lead them straight to town, unlikely to be discovered. But Luke said he didn't want to keep running. It was time to part ways. He told Mark to go on ahead and to send him a magazine when he made it out. Mark left, and Luke headed to a church, quietly quietly reflecting on his life. With his mother now laid to rest, he had nothing left to hold on to. Suddenly, Mark returned. He'd been caught shortly after leaving. He pleaded with Luke to come back, promising things would be the same as before. But Luke only smiled, walked to the window, and said, "What we got here is a failure to communicate." Luke had chosen to end things his own way. He had never escaped just to be free. It was always an act of rebellion, a protest against injustice. He would rather die than return to a life in chains. Even in his final moments, he wore a quiet smile. After that day, the prison was never the same. Stories spread about the man who defied the system again and again, a man who created miracles, but whose smile the world would never see again. In Cool Hand Luke, Paul Newman brought this complex, conflicted character to life with his iconic smile, innocent blue eyes, and powerful performance. But Luke wasn't just a rebel, he was a martyr. In his fight against the rules, all he ever received was silence. Everyone else might have been asleep, but Luke stayed awake, and that gave him no choice. Ironically, even those trapped inside the very system he resisted recognized the truth in him. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. See you in next Lucky Movie Recaps.